Recording first. Okay. So, welcome, Luis, to Portugal, to the fifth, I guess, PASSPORTal Global Connections session about the Statue of Liberty and the United States. And the floor is yours.
Thank you for inviting me. I hope this works well. I don't usually use Zoom. I use Microsoft Teams, but I think I can figure this out.
O professor está mais habituado ao Teams, que é uma outra aplicação, em vez do Zoom, mas vai tentar perceber como é que se partilha aqui o ecrã. Apontem tudo que achem que é interessante, para depois.
Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So my name is Luis Oliveira. I was actually born in São Miguel do Sul, and I moved to the United States when I was 9 years old. So I was actually born in Portugal. I'm a Portuguese citizen and a U.S. citizen. So I'm so happy to be sharing this with you. I teach at a school called Middletown High School. It's a secondary school. I have students from grades 9 through 12, and I work with students that are international students learning English at the high school.
Portanto, o professor veio dos Açores, tal como eu disse, foi para lá com 9 anos. Bem?
My apologies. I forgot to turn on the subtitles. Are they showing now, I hope?
So yes.
Perfect. The translation sometimes isn't perfect, but again, sort of if you need to jump in and change a couple things or say a couple things, please feel free to jump in anytime. So today we're going to speak about the Statue of Liberty. Okay, sometimes she's called Lady Liberty, and she is a statue that stands and greets folks, people that come in to New York Harbor. And on the statue, there's this famous saying, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." And this comes from a poem by Emma Lazarus. And it is, it's a saying that's really, really important because it basically is saying, all the people who come to the United States, we welcome you and we're here to help you.
Portanto, esta estátua é logo a primeira coisa que um estrangeiro, quando lá chega, não é? Vê neste porto, que enfrenta o porto dali daquela zona. E, no fundo, está a dizer que todos são bem-vindos. Olha, este é o professor.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was pointing to you, to your picture.
Okay, so this is these are a few pictures of different areas of the Statue of Liberty. The first two pictures I actually I took, and it's me in front of the Statue of Liberty. And the second picture is my son Michael and I. He was a Boy Scout, and we took a trip to see the New York and the Statue of Liberty. You can see it way in the back. I'm going to try this pointer here, see if it works. You can see the statue is right here. Are you able to see the laser pointer, I hope?
Estão a ver ali a estátua? Este é o filho dele, que acho que foi escoteiro também. E aqui são várias imagens, várias perspectivas diferentes da estátua. Bem,
so this picture here is actually a painting that is called The Unveiling of the Statue of Liberty, Enlightening the World, from 1886, and it was painted by Edward Morin. And this is a painting of when the statue was inaugurated. Okay. On the statue itself, she is holding a book. You can see right here on her left hand, she is holding a book. On her right hand, a torch. On the book is the date of the independence of the United States, July 4th, 1776. And this other picture is a picture of the immigrants arriving at the port of New York. They're arriving on a ship, and the first thing they would see would be the statue.
Okay. Portanto, aqui está a data da independência dos Estados Unidos, não é? 4 de julho de 1776, e é a primeira coisa, como eu já disse, que eles, quem chega lá vê, dos Estados Unidos. E aquilo é uma pintura, aquele outro era uma pintura da estátua.
So here are some interesting facts about the statue. Okay, its official name is Liberty Enlightening the World. Most people call it the Statue of Liberty or Lady Liberty.
Aquilo é que é o nome oficial, que é a liberdade a iluminar o mundo, percebe? Mas as pessoas, pronto, chamam-lhe Estátua da Liberdade.
So the statue was a gift from the French government, and it was dedicated on October 28, 1866. That is the picture that I showed you earlier.
Okay? Foi oferecida pela França. A Estátua da Liberdade foi oferecida pela França. Okay? E foi-lhes dada naquela data que ele está.
28 de outubro de 1900.
Sim.
So the statue came to the United States in pieces, and then it had to be put together here in the U.S. But there was no place to put it. So they had to raise money by fundraising. And this gentleman, Joseph Pulitzer, is the one who led the drive to get the money to build the pedestal, which is concrete and absolutely huge.
Is it the same person of the Pulitzer Prize?
I believe it is, and he was a publisher in New York, and I am pretty sure that is the same person.
Ok. Portanto, a estátua foi oferecida, a estátua propriamente foi oferecida pela França, mas depois, onde é que eles a iam pôr, não é? E depois, então, os Estados Unidos ficaram encarregues de fazer o tal pedestal onde ela está. Aquele pedaço assim grande. Diz que aquilo que é uma coisa enorme, medonho. Mas era preciso dinheirinho, não é? E então, quem reuniu, quem raise money, como é que se diz? Quem juntou o dinheiro, quem angariou esse dinheiro, foi este senhor, o Joseph Pulitzer. E eu perguntei agora se este Pulitzer era um senhor que também dá prémios, aos prémios Pulitzer aos jornalistas. Às vezes ouve-se nas notícias a dizer que o fulano ganhou no jornalismo o Pulitzer Prize, não é? E eu perguntei se era o mesmo. E acha que sim, mas pronto, é daquelas informações que depois vamos ter de conferir. Ok? Go ahead.
Okay, so Augusto Bartoli is the person who designed the Statue of Liberty, and he designed it to represent the Roman goddess Libertas.
Portanto, este senhor é que desenhou a estátua e desenhou-a à semelhança das deusas romanas. A deusa romana, se calhar, da liberdade, inspirado nisso.
And the person who was most responsible for the building of the actual statue is Gustave Eiffel, who you might have already heard about. He also built the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France.
Exactly. Portanto, este senhor é que ficou responsável pela construção. Uma coisa é o desenho, outra coisa é depois pôr aquilo em pé, não é? E é preciso fazer cálculos, matemáticos, engenharia, e entrar aqui. Portanto, este Gustave Eiffel, que foi também o que fez lá a Torre Eiffel, foi ele que foi encarregue também da Estátua da Liberdade. Just a moment. Diz, Leonardo.
Ele fez a Ponta Ana Maria também.
Sim,
Leonardo, one of the student in orange. Põe-te de pé um bocadinho, ou levanta o braço.
Yeah, I can see him. Yeah? Hello, Leonardo.
So Leonardo was telling me that Eiffel was responsible for Dona Maria Bridge here.
See, I did not know that, so I am also learning with you. That's excellent. Thank you for letting me know that. I did not know that. I guess he built a lot of pretty important things.
Yeah, in Porto, you know, Porto is really next to us, 20 kilometers north, and it has many bridges over the River Douro.
Yes.
And one of them was for trains, and it is called Dona Maria, Queen. And
There you see. I am learning something about my country now. That's great. That's why I love these things, because we learn from each other. So to continue, the statue is 151 feet 1 inch, which is 46.05 meters tall, and the pedestal that concrete that it stands on is 154 feet, which is 46.94 meters tall. So it is quite tall. At one point, it was actually the tallest thing in New York. It no longer is, but it once was.
Ok, isto dá mais, bocadinho mais que 96, 97 metros de altura. Portanto, é mesmo um colosso. Estão a ver que o pedestal é ligeiramente até mais alto do que a própria estátua. Estou a ver ali 2 braços no ar, diz. Okay, do you want to answer some questions now or at the end?
I don't mind. We may want to just wait till the end, because some of the questions, they may get the answers as I do the presentation. And if not, if they have a question they want an answer to right away, I'll do my best to answer it.
Escreve para não te esquecer, depois perguntas. E a tua?
Antigamente estavam para subir até
Pronto.
a tocha, ainda dá.
Apontas aí, se faz favor, depois no fim vamos responder. O professor diz que às vezes na apresentação já responde a isso. Se ele não responder, então ao fim perguntamos, ok? Ok.
I'll try really hard not to speak too much, so that way you have time to ask all your questions, and I'll do my best to answer them all.
Ok. O professor vai se esforçar para nos responder às perguntas. Já vai lá.
So if you look at the Statue of Liberty, it looks green. It actually, its true color is copper, just like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the U.S. penny. So it's made of copper. And what happened is, over time, the oxidation turned it green. That's why it looks green now.
Portanto, a acidificação das moedas, como algumas das moeditas que há lá nos Estados Unidos, ficam verdes, não é? Em contacto com o oxigênio, não é? Com o ar. E é isso que está a acontecer à estátua, como ela também é feita. Eu acho que é cobre.
É cobre.
Yes.
Portanto, ela tem aquela coloração esverdeada. Não é que tenha sido pintada, mas é uma reação química com o ar. Okay? Exatamente, oxidação.
It's made of several different materials, but the outside, it's lined with copper, which cobre, as you said, and that's why it's turned green.
É feita de muitos materiais, mas o exterior é cobre, por isso é que depois reage daquela maneira.
Okay, so here are some more pictures of the statue. The one on the left, let me get my little pointer here again. The one on the left here, this is one of the ferries that you can take to go to the statue. This statue is on an island, so you actually have to take a boat to get there. And there are different ferries that you can take. There's, you can buy a ticket that lets you go to the Statue of Liberty Island, which I'll talk about in a little bit, as well as Ellis Island, which is where the immigrants would come in to be processed once they came into New York and New Jersey. This next picture is actually the statue coming to the U.S. It came in different crates, in pieces, and then had to be put together once it arrived here. And on the third picture, you can see Lady Liberty at night, and this area right here is the part that is not green, is that pedestal that Mr. Pulitzer helped to fundraise for.
Portanto, isto é que é o tal pedestal, não é? Onde ela está. E não é verde porque não tem nada de cobre, não é? E aqui em cima é que está a tal estátua, como se vê. E ela aqui veio aos pedaços, porque aquilo é enorme, um barco só não dava para aquilo.
So I'm going to try to show you it's about a 4-minute video that shows actually inside the statue and some really interesting things that during the time that they were trying to create a virtual tour of the Statue of Liberty. I hope the sound works. Please let me know if it doesn't.
Did you tick the little box when you were sharing the screen?
Uh-oh. I don't think I did. Should I unshare and start again?
Yeah, and share and tick the audio little box, and then you share it again.
Where it says share sound?
O professor vai mostrar um vídeo agora de cerca de 4 minutos que é uma visita guiada ao interior da estátua. Está bem? Portanto, vamos agora andar lá buscar aquilo todo de graça, hein? Apontem as perguntas, depois no fim nós temos aqui um espaço para perguntar, ok?
Standing tall in New York Harbor, the Statue of
you hear the
Liberty can
sound?
only be viewed from a distance right now. But with Connor Knighton, we're about to get up close and personal.
Last summer, architect Paul Davidson spent 10 nights inside of the Statue of Liberty. From 6 p.m. to 7 a.m., he and his team carried out a first-of-its-kind laser scan of Lady Liberty, capturing the statue's interior during the hours when it wasn't packed full of tourists.
Do you look back at those 10 nights and think, oh man, I could have been doing it now during the daytime?
I know. This is like the perfect time to be surveying outside and in, for sure.
We're now on our way to the Statue of Liberty.
Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty are currently closed to all visitors, shut down due to COVID-19. Which actually makes this the perfect time to debut some of Davidson's work. The images he captured during those long nights have just been turned into a virtual tour. Now, all those who can't visit in person can explore the statue online like never before.
You can get into the crown and kind of view everything in 360. You can go up to the torch and get a view off of that. You can climb up the arm.
The virtual tour includes many areas that would traditionally be off limits to visitors. Davidson's team also laser scanned every nook and cranny, and getting that data was no easy task.
Really, the biggest challenge for survey that the statue presents is the fact that it is never still. It's constantly moving in the wind. When you're surveying, you want it to be static. But we were in that torch and it was probably 5 or 10 miles an hour, and it was swaying really like 3 or 4 inches. It was kind of like being on a boat.
The statue was meant to sway. Its flexible support system was designed by French architect Alexandre Gustave Eiffel. Perhaps you've heard of his tower in Paris. When Liberty Enlightening the World was dedicated in 1886, it was the highest structure in all of New York City, a triumph of engineering and an instant international icon.
I think about the conditions under which that was done, and it was for nothing more than to celebrate democracy and freedom and liberty.
Davidson has been documenting the statue as part of the National Park Service's Historic American Building Survey. The new virtual tour is just part of the project. The new scan will serve as a high-tech, three-dimensional blueprint for everything from research to reconstruction, if, God forbid, anything should ever happen to the statue.
This is a record that has many uses down the line. If they do need to make some alterations for social distancing even, they've got a complete 3D model to map that stuff out.
Whenever the statue eventually reopens, touring its tight interior spaces will likely be done very differently. But there's still something powerful about being there in person. As Davidson points out, a virtual visit is nice, but it's no substitute for the real thing.
It's the visitors who circulate through the statue every day who kind of enliven the space, right? The beam that they touch every time that they go up the stairs, or the metal treads are wearing in the center from people passing through. And all those visual cues, you start to feel the presence of how many people have moved through this space for 130 years. And you can basically like reach back in history and feel something from that.
Portanto, ele documentou aquilo, não é? Fez o scan do interior, tem aquilo agora tudo preparado para se fazer a tal visita virtual E caso aconteça alguma fatalidade à própria estátua, eles com estes documentos também conseguiriam reconstruí-lo. Portanto, ela está ali, não sei exatamente se é aqui ou se é aqui. Parece aqui, não é? Statue of Liberty, no mapa. Acho que aquela era uma ilha onde antes estavam prisioneiros.
Era Alcatraz.
Era uma prisão. Não sei se era. Is that a place where the prisoners were before?
You know, I've heard that. I'm not sure. I have heard people say that at one point there were prisoners on the island, but I don't know for sure. That's something that I can look up. I'm going to write that down and find that information for you.
Okay.
And I will also be sending you some of the links. There's actually a link that takes you to the virtual tour where you can take your students and move things around and actually see the inside. That work that gentleman did is really, really important because not only did it help to set up the virtual tour, which was really important during the time where people could not visit it, but it also, as he said, is very important because if something were to ever happen to the statue, they now have digital records of every piece of the statue if they ever needed to put it back together. So this here is the Statue of Liberty Island, okay? So there are actually two different islands. Liberty Island, which is this one, the one that the statue is on, and then there is Ellis Island. And Ellis Island is the place that now holds the Immigration Museum, and that was where the immigrants would come in and be processed. At one point, from 1892 to 1954, nearly 12 million immigrants arrived at the ports of New York and New Jersey and were processed there under federal law. So they would come up the port, like to come this way, they would go by the Statue of Liberty and then go to Ellis Island to be processed.
Chegavam, passavam aqui e iam para aquela ilha, os imigrantes. Viram ali quase 12 milhões de imigrantes passaram aqui durante quase 100 anos, não é? E depois era ali naquele sítio onde tinham que mostrar a papelada, ver se tinham doenças, se não tinham, pronto, aquela confusão toda, que na altura só chegavam barcos. Vocês lembram-se, por exemplo, daquele filme famoso Titanic, não é? Titanic, que ia a caminho dos Estados Unidos e muitas das pessoas que lá estavam iam emigrar para os Estados Unidos, percebem? Para outros iam só ir passeio, não é? Iam para, pronto, só para ter onde gastar o dinheiro, mas muita gente ia, pronto, procurar uma vida melhor nos Estados Unidos, ok? Olha, outras agora dos Estados Unidos.
Yeah, so I'm just going to show you a couple more pictures of things that tourists would do in New York. There are so many. I would need about a week to go through everything about just New York alone, never mind United States. But I'm just going to show you a little bit, and then if you're interested in finding out more information, I will send those links that Sora Manuela can use to help you see more if you're interested. So when on September 11th, when we had the towers that crashed, there is now a National September 11 Memorial and Museum. And this first picture here is of, let me get my pointer here. This first picture here is one of the two reflecting pools that are on the site of the Twin Towers. Each pool has names of the folks who died engraved into it, and there are two separate pools in the area where the Twin Towers used to stand.
No sítio onde estariam as torres, sabem que aquilo teve que ter umas fundações enormes, não é? Pronto, e aquilo destruiu tudo, depois limparam aquilo tudo, não é? Demorou anos, penso eu, e eles, em vez de reconstruírem ali qualquer coisa, deixaram manter aqueles buracos, eles são agora uma espécie de lagos, de piscinas, não é? E tem jatos de água, assim, uma água que vai correr por ali, e tem uma para cada torre. No sítio onde estaria a torre está uma destas piscinas, entre aspas. percebe? E diz quem já lá esteve, eu nunca estive, mas diz quem já lá esteve que aquilo é assim uma coisa, pá, imponente, assim, uma coisa forte, percebes? A pessoa quando lá está sente ali uma ligação, assim, uma coisa mesmo muito poderosa. E tem os nomes das pessoas também, lá toda à volta. Pronto, foi uma ideia singela, mas muito bonita e poderosa.
I visited both the reflecting pools as well as the museum. There's also a museum there that has many pictures, and it has artifacts. It actually has one of the fire trucks that was like almost melted from the extreme heat when the towers collapsed. It is one of the most chilling experiences I have ever had in my life. You stand there at the pool or in the museum, it is absolutely quiet, like still, extremely still. It's very difficult to explain, but it's something that everyone should have a chance to go and see because it was such a tragedy here in the U.S.
Portanto, diz que é um sítio muito silencioso, que o professor já lá esteve, e que arrepia, exatamente por isso, pelo silêncio que lá está, diz que é assim uma coisa impressionante. E há também um museu onde tem bocados e imagens e pedaços até dos caminhões todos retorcidos, dos incêndios, não é, que entretanto houve, pronto. Está ali no fundo documentado aquele dia fatídico. Vocês ainda não eram nascidos, não é? Mas eu era, e lembro-me até estava no Porto, lembro-me de ter passado por um café e ter visto uma imagem num noticiário qualquer, à hora do almoço, mais ou menos, e disse, epá, alguma coisa aconteceu. Toda a gente a pensar que aquilo tinha sido um acidente, porque foi um avião, pronto, opá, olha, coitado desgraçado, não controlou, qualquer coisa aconteceu. Ali, quando se dá segundo impacto, pá, toda a gente percebeu, isto já não pode ser um erro humano, não é? Isto já foi propositado. E pronto, e foi... Em 2001 foi quando 2 aviões bateram contra as Torres Gêmeas.
Eles roubaram os aviões.
Percebes? E depois havia mais, outros preparados. Um caiu sobre o Pentágono, que é aquele sítio onde tem lá as coisas do exército, do militar, não é? E outro que depois as próprias pessoas do próprio avião conseguiram tomar conta e ele acabou por se despenhar lá num campo qualquer, porque também ia direcionado para Washington para cair lá no sítio qualquer, estás a perceber?
O piloto, quando recebeu aquela chamada a dizer, acho que era uma interferência na rádio, não era uma chamada, era por rádio, para ele bater. Ele disse para as pessoas gritarem e depois eles pensaram que já tinham batido e conseguiram salvar.
Pois isso já não sei. Okay, I was telling them about that awful.
No, I was listening to you, and you're absolutely right. There was the plane that the passengers helped to take down, that never reached its destination, and there was also the one that attacked the Pentagon in Washington D.C. So it was a terrible day in our country, and the museum and the reflecting pools, as well as other areas around the country that have memorials to honor the people who lost their lives during that terrible tragedy. So to continue, this other picture is Times Square in New York City. It's during New Year's Eve, and it's where the dropping of the ball, where the ball comes down to begin the new year. And there is, like you can see, these are all people all here. Those are all people standing. Now, of course, with COVID, you can't have as many people, but that's what it looks like during normal years.
Quando bate a meia-noite, cai assim uma bola cheia de luzes, e aquilo é um processo muito complicado, é muito interessante. E aquele Empire State Building era, até ver as Torres Gêmeas, tinha sido o prédio mais alto do lado de Nova Iorque, não é? Ou, não sei se era do mundo, até acho que era do mundo. Mas agora já há também na Arábia, alguns, algumas coisas. Portanto, este é o mapa dos Estados Unidos. Falta aqui o Alasca, que está ali mais para cima. Vê-se aqui. Está coladinho aqui ao Canadá. E aqui são as ilhas Hawaii, do Hawaii, que ficam assim para aqui, para o Pacífico. E depois, se a gente andar mais um bocadinho, aparece o Japão. E a Ásia, com a China e tudo. Ok. Então, isto são os 50 estados. Estão a ver? Eles lá têm 50 estados, que é uma coisa para decorar aquilo tudo.
É difícil.
É difícil.
Não é impossível.
You know, I have a game, and I'm trying to learn the states of the U.S. and also some other countries and capitals. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I love geography, so that's one of the things that I love to do with my students is, talk about the different parts of the world. So as you explain to your students very nicely in Portuguese, this is a map of the United States, and it's made up of 50 states and 5 territories and 1 district, which is Washington, D.C., and that is also our capital city. So as you said to your students, Alaska, there is a picture down here of Alaska, and on the bottom left in the islands of Hawaii, Alaska actually is up here between Canada and Russia. You can see Canada here and Russia here. And the islands of Hawaii are out here in the Pacific Ocean, and they're part of the United States. So the 48 states are called the 48 lowest states, and then Alaska and Hawaii make up the other 2. So the 5 territories that are also part of the United States include Puerto Rico, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa, and the Northern and Mariana Islands. So those are also territories that are part of the United States.
You know, one day I had my Skype lesson, the Skype Plastic Cleanup Brigade, and I talked to one class from Guam. Quite interesting.
It is quite interesting because each area has its own unique culture and unique ways of doing things. And that's one of the things about the United States is very, very important. I know that like one of the first questions students ask is, what is your traditional food? What is your traditional dress? In the United States, there really isn't that because it's all different cultures that have come together and make up the country. So it's quite unique that way.
Portanto, se alguém está com ideias de perguntar qual é a comida típica, qual é o traje típico, etc., esqueçam, porque isto é uma variedade tão grande de culturas aqui dentro que, opá, não é possível dizer que é uma comida ou é isto, ou é um traje, ou é qualquer coisa. O professor estava a falar, então, dos 50 estados e dos territórios, também tem uma série de territórios, que são zonas noutras partes do mundo. O Guam, por exemplo, fica para lá, ali na zona da Oceania, estão a ver? E a Samoa, depois tem ali outras ilhas ali também das Caraíbas e de Porto Rico, por exemplo. Pronto. Portanto, é tudo muito rico. Agora vai explicar a bandeira.
All right, so the flag of the United States. The flag is red, white, and blue, and the white color represents purity and innocence. The red represents hardiness and valor. Some people also say the blood that was shed during the Civil War and the Revolutionary War and other wars that we've participated in. The blue is vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Okay, there are 50 stars. What do you think the 50 stars represent?
Que acham que representam as 50 estrelas? Os 50 estados.
Perfect. Boy, you guys know your stuff. And what do you think the 13 stripes, if you count the red and white stripes, there are 13. Anyone have any idea what those represent?
Quererão dizer as riscas, se contarmos as vermelhas e as brancas, dá 13. O que é que quererão dizer? Zé? Não sabes? Alguém sabe? Diz, Samuel.
As 3 colónias originais.
As colónias?
Sim, senhor. Sim, senhor. As colônias originais, as primeiras 3 colônias, the first 13 colonies of the United States before it was the United States.
Antes de ser os Estados Unidos eram colónias e eram 13, ao que parece. I didn't know that. Ok, aqui são dados da população e daquelas coisas.
Yeah, so just some facts about the U.S. There are millions of facts, but these are some of the important ones. So the capital is Washington, D.C. D.C. stands for District of Columbia. The population is over 331 million people. It's the third most in the world, excuse me. The area is 3,796,742 square miles, and you can see what that is in kilometers. I know in Portugal we use the metric system. I used to know the metric system, and then I forgot it. And then the government is a constitutional federal republic. The officials that run the government are elected by the people. You can see some of our major cities, with New York being the largest with almost 9 million people. Los Angeles has almost 4 million people. Chicago almost 3 million people. And Houston has just over 2 million people. And there are many other cities that have smaller numbers, but these are the largest population cities in the U.S.
In Portugal, we are around 10 million. So, imagine. Só Nova Iorque é quase o tamanho de Portugal em pessoas.
In a little bit, you're going to learn a little bit about my state, and you'll see that I went from Portugal, a small country, to Rhode Island, a small state. I like small.
Yeah.
Like, I like to visit New York City, but I would never want to live there.
Mas ele não vive em Nova Iorque, ele vive mais ali perto, que é uma zona chamada Rhode Island. Okay, ele caminho vai mostrar.
Okay, so the major, most countries have an official national language. The U.S. actually does not have an official national language. English is called the de facto national language. It's what is used throughout the country. In some states, I believe there are 31 states that have made English the official language of the state, but the country itself has many, many languages. English being the biggest the language that's spoken by most people, but Spanish is spoken by many people, Chinese, French, Vietnamese, Tagalog, and many, many other languages. In the area that I live, there are many, many Portuguese speakers. And while I was putting this presentation together, I actually learned that the state that has the largest number of Portuguese speakers is actually Hawaii. And I did not know that.
Diz que onde tem maior número de portugueses é no Havaí.
And the state of Hawaii is actually made up of 137 islands. There are some bigger islands, but there are many, many small islands. I didn't know that either, so I learned quite a bit about my country while trying to put the presentation together.
Eu também sabia isto, também ao fazer esta apresentação aprendeu aqui uma série de coisas. Ok?
Okay, so here are some images from the capital, Washington, D.C. This first one here on the left is the White House. That's where the president lives and works,
Casa Branca.
Along with his family.
Yeah. Capitólio.
This building is called the Capitol Building. It's where the Senate and the House of Representatives, that's the legislative branch that makes up the laws in the United States, that's where they work. The House of Representatives is on one side of the building and the Senate is on the other side. So these two wings are where all of the laws are made. This third picture is the Washington Monument. It's a tribute to George Washington, who was the first president of the United States. He was also a general and a hero of the Revolutionary War when we fought against the British to gain independence. And this is a statue of Abraham Lincoln. He was president during the Civil War. It sits inside a building. There's actually a building that covers it. That's called the Lincoln Memorial, and it would be right here. Then there's this big pool of water, and you have the Washington Monument, and beyond the Washington Monument, way back here in the back, is the Capitol building.
Okay.
So I'm just going to show you a couple pictures of some interesting places to visit. There is no way I can show you all the interesting places to visit. There are just so many, but I'm just showing you some of the areas that not only are considered to be really important, but they're also areas that I'd like to visit someday because I haven't visited many of these amazing places that exist in the United States. These two pictures are of the Grand Canyon National Park, which is in the state of Arizona. And this first picture is showing the canyon, and you see the water down here running through the middle? That's the Colorado River that runs through the Grand Canyon. And this is a platform that actually extends out over the canyon. So when you're standing here, you can look over the canyon, and the canyon is absolutely humongous. It is so big that there are areas that from rim to rim, it's 10 miles. In some areas, 18 miles. The average depth is 1 mile, which is 1.6 kilometers deep in most of the areas. So it is an absolutely humongous, very, very big. It's considered one of the natural wonders of the world.
Que eles fazem para as pessoas poderem andar lá e espreitar para baixo deve ser assustador, mas pronto. E isto é o Rushmore National Memorial, que é dos presidentes. Isto são as caras de vários presidentes que eles já lá tiveram.
Okay. So here is a picture of the faces of the 4 presidents that are carved into the mountain called Mount Rushmore. It's part of the Mount Rushmore National Memorial. And the presidents, this is George Washington. Okay. Then you have Thomas Jefferson. You have Theodore Roosevelt, where most people call him Teddy Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. And these were created by Gutzon Borglum, and he selected these 4 presidents because from his way of thinking, from his perspective, they represented the most important events in the history of the United States. Now, there are people who would have different opinions and put different faces up there, but since he was the one that did it, these were his 4 choices.
Achou que eram pessoas que representavam os 4 momentos os eventos mais importantes na história dos Estados Unidos. Claro que depois há muitas vozes discordantes que achavam que deviam ser outros, pá, mas como foi ele quem construiu, ele é que decidiu, eram estes e acabou. Okay? Go on.
Okay, so as I explained before, there's the 48 states that are all together. And then there is Alaska and Hawaii that are separate from the mainland United States. And some of the things that people love to do is a lot of outdoor activities. In Alaska, there's an island called Kodiak Island. It has some of the largest brown grizzly bears in the world. And hunters go there to hunt, and people go there for fishing and many activities. This picture here shows the ice glaciers. People viewing the ice glaciers. It's a very popular thing to do in Alaska. People actually take cruise ships to go and view the glaciers. This picture shows the hula dance, which is a famous dance in Hawaii. The Hawaiian Islands have a Polynesian culture represented throughout the islands, and the hula dance is part of the culture. And there are many active volcanoes in Hawaii, and the largest volcano in the world is called Mauna Loa, and it is found in the state of Hawaii.
O maior vulcão do mundo, pelos vistos, é lá no Havaí também.
All right, so remember I mentioned that, I left my country of Portugal, small country, and I went to Rhode Island, the smallest state in the Union. The capital of Rhode Island is Providence. Rhode Island is called the Ocean State because there is a lot of ocean area. So there's 400 miles, about 640 kilometers of coastline. And there are also many bays and inlets that make up about 14% of the total area is on the coast. Okay, so the truth of the matter is it's called the Ocean State, but most of Rhode Island is on the mainland of the United States. So some of the things that are important in Rhode Island, you notice the Dia de Portugal, the Day of Portugal, it's actually celebrated in Providence, our capital, every year. This year will be the 45th Day of Portugal. There is a very large Portuguese community here in the state of Rhode Island.
Também, pelos vistos.
This is the Rhode Island red, which is the official state bird, and this is the flag of Rhode Island. It's hard to see, but it says hope here in blue, which is the state motto. The International Hall of Fame is located in Newport, and it's the International Hall of Fame. So for all of tennis around the world, that is where the Hall of Fame is, right in Newport. And this is a grass court that they actually play a tournament here in Rhode Island every year. It's hard to see, but these here are mansions. Newport is famous for its mansions, and these were the homes of the rich and famous. There is like a road that goes all along, and there are many mansions. So people come to Rhode Island, and one of the things they come to do is to go to Newport and visit the mansions, visit the International Hall of Fame. And so that's why I chose these pictures.
Okay.
Okay, so I am going to stop sharing.
Ok, agora é a altura das perguntas. Está bem?
And just go easy on me, because the U.S. is very, very large. There are many things, so I may not have the answers to all your questions, but I promise if you ask the question and I don't know the answer, I will find out what the answer is.
Vai descobrir, se não souber a resposta.
Estou a bater.
O que foi?
Eles estão a levantar com a régua e isso apareceu eu. Eu estava a chegar muito perto.
Se o professor não souber a resposta, ele vai perguntar. Vai lá, vamos lá, que já temos pouco tempo. Quem é que quer fazer perguntas? Pronto, então vamos começar por ali. Afonso, Zé, Tiago. Ok, come on, quickly. Anda cá.
Tem ela também.
Anda cá. A Mariana também? Ok. Rápido, sejam rápidos. Ó Zé, prepara-te já para vires. Apresentas, dizes quem és, mostras a tua carinha ali, que a barriga é linda, mas assim, não temos, não. Olha lá.
Hello, my name is Afonso e queria lhe fazer uma pergunta. Quanto tempo demorou a ser construída a Estátua da Liberdade?
How long did it take to build the Statue of Liberty?
Oh, you're starting out with a really hard one. You know, I don't know the exact number, but it took a long time, because first the idea came about to do this, and then they had difficulty in getting it to pass, because remember, this happened in France. It was actually a gift to the United States by the French government. And you know how things work in government, right? Everything takes time. So the idea came about, then they had to get the approvals. They also had to come up with the money to build it. Then it was built in different stages and shipped over to the United States by boat, by ship. And then they had to be put together. They had to raise money for that concrete the concrete stand, the pedestal. So it took many, many years. I don't know the exact number, but I will find out.
Okay.
As far as I know, it came with delay. It was supposed to celebrate, I don't know, the 100-year of the independence, to commemorate,
Right.
but it came late. I don't know how many years.
Yeah, it was an extensive amount of time, and I'll be able to look up it might even be difficult to get the exact amount of time because it depends on do you mean how long did it take them to build it, to actually physically build it, or how long did it take from the beginning of the idea to the actual statue being inaugurated? So it was a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Faz a pergunta. Vai lá. Hello.
Hello, my name is José. Eu queria fazer uma pergunta que é, se antigamente dava para subir na tocha, mas ainda dá?
Can we climb to go to the torch?
Yes. Because of COVID, it was closed for quite a while. New York, the state of New York, New York City is in the state of New York, and they have opened up many of the facilities now with smaller numbers. But when it's not COVID, you can climb up the stairs and go up to, if you remember in the picture, it looks like these windows on the head of the statue, Lady Liberty, right at the crown. You can see these little windows, and that's where you can actually go up and see and look out. Many years before, you actually could go even further up, but then there was an attempted bombing of the statue during the World War, and after that they no longer let people go up to the top. So the only way you can is that virtual tour. And if we have time, sorta, I can actually go to that link and show you what the virtual tour looks like if we have time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Faz os baixos.
Hello, my name is Mariana.
Mariana.
E eu tinha uma pergunta para fazer. Por que escolheram esse lugar para a estátua?
That's a great question. They chose this place for the statue because during the time when it was brought to the United States, that it was the place that the most immigrants came in to the country. That is where the majority of the people coming from other countries would come to the United States. So they felt that since the Statue of Liberty represented and welcoming people, it was the perfect place to put it. As people came into the harbor, they would see the statue welcoming them, and then they would go and get processed.
Portanto, acharam que era melhor ali porque era o sítio por onde passavam a maior parte dos imigrantes e iriam vê-la e acharam que era interessante. Ok. Leonardo?
Nada.
Não era o Tiago. Era o Tiago. Vai lá.
Hello, I'm Tiago and I'm 11 years old.
Hello, Tiago.
How many builders building the Statue of Liberty
worked?
So how many buildings
How many
are there?
How many builders, people, worked on the
how many? Good question. Good question. I will have to look that up. So how many people did it take to build? Again, I believe that that's going to be a very large number because there was the person who designed it, there was the architect, the engineers, but there were also the people who physically built it. And that was in France, where they built the statue, all the different parts. There were the people who had to take the parts and put it on the ship. There were then the people in the United States who had to build, put the statue back together, as well as build the pedestal that it stands on. So both in France and in the United States, there were many, many people in the process of building it and putting it together. So I will try to find an answer as to how many people that was exactly, but I think that might be a difficult one to find because there were so many people in both countries that participated.
É difícil saber quantas pessoas trabalharam na torre, porque desde quem desenhou, a quem pensou, os engenheiros, a depois de facto quem construiu, quem transportou, etc. Portanto, serão centenas, se não mais, de pessoas. Não.
My name is Leonardo. And I'm a question. Em quantos pedaços é que foi entregue a Estátua da Liberdade?
So the statue was made in delivered in pieces. How many?
Yeah, I haven't been able to find that. I actually was looking for that because I thought that might be one of the questions that was asked. I haven't seen how many exact pieces, but what I see over and over again is they came in many boxes. They broke it up into a lot of pieces, but I have not seen the actual number yet.
Só não sabe. Eu sei que, por exemplo, a cabeça era uma delas. Só a cabeça.
Yes.
Portanto, depois é uma questão de imaginar quantas mais é que seriam. 3, 4, talvez. Não sei. I don't know either. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sure somebody knows.
Hello. Hello, my name is Simão. How is it like to be in Times Square?
So it's very exciting. When it's not COVID, there are like thousands and thousands of people in Times Square, especially as it becomes darker. Like when night comes, everything lights up. So Times Square is a very popular place for people who visit New York City, and it's exciting if you like big crowds, if you like a lot of people. And it's scary if you don't, because it's a lot of people all next to each other, especially right now during COVID, which is very dangerous. But it's super, super, super exciting to see the lights, to see all the different people, all the different cultures, people from all over the world all together in one place. So it's pretty cool.
Yes. So thank you.
His English is...
You're welcome. His English is better than mine.
Diz que é excitante estar lá em Times Square. I think it's quite similar with smaller scale with Piccadilly Circus in England, in London, maybe.
Yeah, and it's any place around the world that has something to see and people gather. So there are many places around the world that would be similar.
Okay, so they are getting tired, as you may have noticed. Is there anything else you'd like to ask? Há alguma coisa mais que gostassem de perguntar? Não? Mais alguma coisa? Quem é o Xavier? Queres perguntar alguma coisa? Não? Ok.
Não, será que não se entendia em holandês?
I'd like to thank you so very much. It was really quite interesting. Can we take a picture with you?
Of course, absolutely.
Ok, vamos tirar uma foto com muito juízo. Ouçam o que eu vou dizer. Temos muito pouco espaço. É preciso manter o professor aqui à vista. Eu vou tentar marcar aqui o professor para ele não desaparecer. Vocês não podem tapá-lo. Podem se pôr de lado ou em baixo. Não podem... Calma que eu não me vi. Não podem passar desta mesa. Nem passar desta mesa. Portanto, tem que se encolher de maneira a caber aqui, ok? Olha lá. Okay, I will stop recording because I forgot.